Let's start with this. There's many different ways of looking at things, right? The only objective truth would be what's black and white. Everything in between, what we see as far as the colors of the rainbow, is going to be all perspective. You see what I'm saying? Because I actually seen like even shorts where they would say that to certain animals, the color green doesn't look green at all like it does to a human. And that's because of certain receptors that they're lacking in that you have. It's like this with certain people too. You may see a color totally different than I see a color. But in actuality, the two ways that I'm talking about is basically what's fundamentally true. And that's the physical manifestation of God, which would be masculine or feminine. When you have the masculine state, you would see the physical. When you see the feminine state, you would see the metaphysical. But in order for you to see both sides of the picture, you would have to embody both sides of the spectrum. And then you'd be able to have a better understanding of everything else that's in between. In order for you to know what your true representation here is as either a man or a woman. In order for you to be a man, you have to be in tune with that feminine nature in you. If not, you are out of balance. You will never find completion because you will try to find it in a woman outside of you in the physical, and that's why you never feel fulfilled. That's why you would call her your other half. And then the woman would do the same thing. The woman has to tap into her inner masculine in order for her to know what a true man is. She would have to know what a true man is within her first. What she basically, as far as respect goes, as far as boundaries go, as far as, you know, her own leadership in her own respective right is as a woman. Even though a woman will never be equal to the man, but a man will never be equal to the woman in kind. You know? You see, everything here is symbolism, but it's running in twos. People polarize to these things, but they don't understand that counterpart. You know, and the reason sometimes I've had discussions with people is in the interest of the debate itself, or the interest of the conversation itself. Because I really don't care how you live, what your perspectives may be. I respect whatever perspectives you have, whatever space or area you're in mentally or in life in general. It's in the interest of the debate. Okay? It's what I love to do. Because you look at your day, you experience your day. You experience your day because the sun is out. Sun's out, guns out. Now the sun being out, the sun is masculine, right? You have no experience of your feminine when you fall asleep at nighttime. Yet that's the time where you're supposed to have a totally different perspective of your life. But you lose it and you're unconscious in that state. And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. You're basically unconscious in that state when you should be aware in that state. You have a conscious mind. Your body's alive in both states. Even if you're not doing anything and you're not even aware, you're still alive. Your body's alive. All right? So you're supposed to have a separate experience, but with awareness. But even though we're supposed to have that awareness even when we sleep, people don't even have the awareness when they're awake. They think they do, but they don't. I'll give you an example. When you watch a movie, you're experiencing a movie. Your body doesn't know the difference between a real or a fake experience. You'll notice that when you watch a movie, you're experiencing it as so. In fact, you get so emotionally involved with it that you may emulate certain characters. You may start to idolize certain experiences or things that happen in that movie. It happened to me when I was watching, for the first time I remember, I watched Fast and the Furious. And I was in my street racing world at that time. And I had a 2000 Honda Prelude. And I had it fully hooked up, you know what I'm saying? Because I worked at a machine shop. So I had that car basically hooked up from, like, literally from scratch. Now, I remember when I got out of the movie theater, I started to drive differently, only because I fell in love with the character of Vin Diesel, Dominic Toretto. And I started to even almost sound like, when I talk like him, I was trying to sound like him too. And it's because I basically, I associated with that character. Because in my waking state here, I was already hooking up cars. I was into the street racing world. We would go to English Town to race, or we would basically just do like little short strip races and whatnot, illegally of course, but it was something I was already doing. So because I watched that movie, I associated with it. So now a man is a man, and he may watch these red pill content, and because he hears the content being so spicy and juicy, right, it almost makes you feel like you're associated with that, but it imbalances you, right? So when I watched that character of Dominic Toretto, I wanted to be like that character, right? Or when I was watching Rocky when I was younger, I wanted to, their bodies were so fucking like jacked and ripped. I was very drawn to that. I loved the way that looked. And I worked out with the purpose of looking like that, you know what I'm saying? And you know, when I'm to make it where I was talking about with the experiences, right? You watch movies, but you're not observing the movie, you're experiencing the movie, what you're watching. And then you're here in this physical realm, your life, and instead of observing your life, you're experiencing your life. Nothing wrong with it, because you're here to experience life, right? But don't get lost in the movie, okay? Because the whole thing is, there may be certain things that happen, certain scenarios with people, places, things, and you become reactionary. And when you become reactionary is that you get lost in the movie, right? So you're experiencing your life, you become associated with that, you kind of get lost in that circle, that bubble, and then when you get so ingrained in it, it's hard to actually come out of it. Overall, you could look at this as far as being in humanity. You lost your complete sense of awareness because you are so involved in the physical humanity side of things. But to overcome that would be to basically put yourself into the practices of disconnecting from it. You know what I'm saying? Like fasting from it. And you get to start to see and exercise the perspectives of what the metaphysical realms are, right? And you actually will start to have the experiences when you sleep, or you start to experience the moments where your mind is in mental activity, not purposely thinking, because no thoughts are yours, but you'll notice you have certain mental activities and you observe it, and you notice your body goes to sleep. You're actually dreaming, but you start to feel like you're dreaming, but you're still aware, like you're awake, but your body's asleep, you know? And now you're starting to realize that you're experiencing it just based on thoughts. Everything you're living here in this physical realm, the realm of light, you're experiencing it based on your thought patterns. You're just not aware that that's what's happening. So if you start to become aware of your thought patterns, then you can start to manipulate your life and your movie. Because when you sleep, and this happened to me, I was aware, and I just appeared there, just kind of like, and it blends in so peacefully where you don't even notice it. You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden I'm experiencing what my mental activity was happening. I was already in that dream. But the moment I started to become aware without involving too much humanity into it, awareness does not have to do with humanity as far as, you know, putting an emotion into it. You could maintain a neutral state of awareness, you know. Now, if I start to put emotions or human feelings into it, then obviously I'm going to wake up, because I'm no longer conducive to a metaphysical experience. I'm conducive to a physical experience. Right? So these bodies that we have that we're not aware of, like the emotional body, the spiritual body, and all that, it's all hardwired into your physical. But if you start to experience it as if you were still a human, you will jump out of it. You know what I'm saying? And you have to walk around like literally like you're a god walking a space. But the moment you doubt that godness, it's no different than you showing fear to a fucking animal. The animal will attack you. Things will start to look at you differently, and everything changes. How do you see yourself? What do you feel in that moment about the experience? You become that experience. Okay? So being here in the physical realm, okay? If your masculinity or your awareness, the Christ consciousness, because Christ is the sun. The reason you could see your reality here is because of the sun, but the reason the sun is there is because you are collapsing it into existence. You get what I'm saying? So it's still, you are the God of this realm for that reason. But here's the thing though, a lot of people walk around, you ever drive a car on a really dark road The only reason you can see is because your headlights are on. If you turn those headlights off and there's no street lights, like I'm talking about, forget about artificial lights, just no light at all, you're going to fall into a ditch or crash into a tree because it's very dark. You can't see. The car's driving, everything's operational, but you can't see. And that's what happens to people. They have no direction, and that's because masculinity is off. That's the sun of God, the light of the world. And you are the light of the world, because technically this is a dark planet, right? The reason it's lit up is because of the sun, but the sun is there because of you. So you are the light of the world. You create man in your image through awareness and belief. How did the woman appear? It's almost like, suppose the awareness of duality happened, right? And that's where the woman happened to appear. But the woman was always there. It was inside of the singularity. It was in the singularity. So right now we experience polarities. Duality is the illusion, but it's a necessary evil for you to be able to experience your reality and experience others as yourself. The whole thing is that the people that you hang out with are basically the way that you feel and see life. It's what you're attracting in your life. That's where the whole your vibe attracts your tribe line comes from. You're attracting your vibe. So when you look at the world, you're looking at yourself technically. And what you demonize about the world, or the imbalances you see about the world, are basically the imbalances you see within you. But a lot of people are trying to change that, and they think that the route they're going with, as far as like their perspective about man and woman, is very, very distorted. It comes from the religious mindset and the religion order. And it's only in the interest of keeping control of humanity. So we build our own prisons by falling into these little religious cults. And spirituality is no different. People fall into a spirituality and it's only just to another religion. They changed the word God to universe. They changed the word manifestations to blessings. I mean, it's just, everything is the same thing, just a different word. But if you look at it, the universe grants you things. When you change your mind, it's the same thing. You're putting your perspective on things outside of you. Everything is you. And if you want to be, let's say, religion is designed to get you closer to God. It was supposed to be a blueprint. The religious order, the Bible, all that talks about yourself, but you're externalizing this as if it was something outside of you. And that's the problem. You lose that awareness. So you're looking for that completion, no different than a man trying to find his, the completion in a woman outside of him. And is that he doesn't have the awareness of the woman in him. You know what I'm saying? And that's why you're constantly not satisfied. You experience 12 hours. Let's say you have a 24-hour clock. You got 12 hours and 12 and 12, 24. 12 day, 12 night, yin and yang. All the little colors in between are just the experiences that you experience. But those are not literal. They're meant to be the observation of all the emotional states. You know what I'm saying? Like just characters, personas, things that come from different brains that you have. So you got red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, right? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. You got black and white. So Roy G. Biv, right? Those look like the colors of your chakras. You have different brains and mentalities, different awarenesses, different characters and personas that you want to basically entertain and participate in, right? But you don't associate with them. I'll give you an example. It's black and white. Black and white. White man, black woman. If you're born a man and you all of a sudden want to play the role of a woman, but you want to convince others that you're a woman, that's of the lie, right? Because even if, suppose you did a sex change, you're a transgender now, it's all good. You can do whatever the hell you want. But if you're trying to convince others that you are an actual woman when you're really a man, that's what I'm talking about being of the lie. So all the colors in between are just perspectives. The fundamental truth is black and white. Even when you go out and say, I'm a police officer. You're a police officer up until a period of time, right? And then you go home, you hang up your uniform, and now you're a family man. So you're not really a police officer. And are you really even a family man? Are you a human? When do you hang up that jacket, right? So and aside from that, even when you retire from the police force, you're no longer an active police officer. You were a police officer, and all you hold on to was the experience and memories of the experience you had. You know, being a family man, that could stop in an instant. Till death do you part. You're alive till death do you part, right? So you have life and death. You have man and woman. Death is not bad, right? But it's unknown. That's why we're afraid of it. We don't have experiences in that death realm because we never actually experienced our sleeping state here. And I'm talking about the sleeping state at nighttime. You're experiencing the most feminine aspect of yourself. Why? Because that's when your subconscious mind comes online. And what's in your subconscious mind will actually surface and present itself, but you're not even aware of that. And that's in the form of dreams. That's why it's important to document your dreams, so you can start to see what's in your subconscious mind. When you do shadow work, because it's done with intent, you'll start to see that this will present itself even more aggressively. Your physical life may even start to change, because why? Your subconscious mind is actually what's governing your life. And when you start to stir those waters, you're starting to stir what's happening in the physical realm. And if you stay in victim mode, then you don't know what to do with yourself, right? And here's what I was talking about before when it came down to even Adam and Eve. When, Adam was not a man at all. In fact, we get the word Adam's apple. It says the word, right? And the word became flesh. The word became God, right? The word was God. So Adam, that's how you get the word Adam's apple, right? Adam, and then you got an atom, something as far as the size of an atom. Okay. The man became aware of the emotional state and the duality. And that's where the woman manifested. No different than when you're walking around in life and you just happen to meet somebody in life. It could be anybody. You happen to just run into somebody. You had conversation. You created that person in your image. You created that person in your experience. They were playing a role in your life, regardless if they were just a pass by, or even when you walk by in the streets. Let's say I'm walking in the busy streets of Manhattan, and I'm walking, and then I happen to look at somebody and they look back at me and I made eye contact. That's a role they played in my worldview, in my movie. And because I saw them and they saw me back, they are in me and I am in them. I have a picture in my mind that I may not remember later, but it's in me, and it stays in me as far as I live, as long as I live. And I will create different characters with different faces that pertain to the one I just saw, different characters to the one I may actually interact with and talk to and meet. They're going to have certain characters and personas. You develop your character and persona as you grow up and get older, and you become the man you are by a collection of information you've gathered outside yourself. You may have met different people. Predominantly, you get this from your mom and dad. You start to get your characters, your images and stuff like that from your parents. And then you go out in the world and you start to pick up little bits and pieces out of everybody you meet. And then that's who you become. You break down all those layers. What actually are you, right? What are you truly at the core? Who are you? When you dismantle all the things, the movies I've watched, I told you I thought I was Dominic Toretto. I may have met one of my friends. I liked the way he said certain things or he carried himself. So I started to actually pick certain little body languages and things from him. Certain girls I used to like a lot. You know what I'm saying? Now I have a specific type that I like. And all that could change through time too, But why does all that change through time? Through influences of the environment. But guess what? That's not necessarily the best thing, because through unawareness, you get influenced. You're nothing but a feminine person because you're guided by your external environment. If it serves you, continue on. If it doesn't serve you, become aware of it and change what you originally found out was influencing you. But you would have to sit down and really do an audit and, reflect on the things you've gone through in your life. You don't live in the past. You kind of look at your past like you read a book. You kind of look at the footprints in the sand, and then you know where you're going. That's the purpose of looking back in time. You don't associate with the past. The past doesn't exist, but you had experiences, right? Because adults are basically always living in the past, and the Bible tells you to be childlike to enter the kingdom of heaven. Why though? A child is excited to be alive, and they're excited for the next moment. They don't have a past to basically be attached to. Meanwhile, humans, which they're in adult states, they have this past, and rather than looking at it as learning lessons, they want to actually continue to associate with it and continue to live in the past. And that's where they're continuing to live in their now moment. That's influencing their next moment, because they're not in the moment, they're in the past. And their moments they're not aware of are happening to them, whether it's serving them or not. It's only based on where they're at. If they're in the past, you're going to continue to stay in that circle. The only way you could change it is just observing the past, reading it like a book, moving forward, right? And knowing where you're going only because of where you've been, right? Knowing if you're with a partner now and you're coming across this information, what triggers you about her? What do you know about her? What do you think she's capable of and not? You'll know this by what you're capable of and not at the same time. If you know that you have certain tendencies, and you'll see these are direct mirrors. You may have certain tendencies to blame the other for something, but it's never going to be a direct mirror. But you'll have something in common. I promise you, you'll find something that you relate to, and I'm going to tell you why. That's why you're in a relationship, because you're based on relatability. You are related to that extent. And we are all, and that's why we say, yo, bro, what up, brother? Oh, that's my sister right there. Even though they're not biologically your brother and sister, but why do we call them brother and sister, right? It's due through relatability. Your vibe attracts your tribe, right? So you build relationships with these people. So the relationships you have is based on relatability. So now you are technically related. The same way when you sleep with your partner, you're sleeping with either your mom or dad, because it's the person you attract in your life based on the patterns you've seen from your own parents. So why does a girl say, fuck me, daddy? Why does a girl say that? Right? Yo, what up, ma? Don't you call your mom or mama? What's up, hot mama? Right? Hi, daddy. That's my daddy right there, I mean, why are we using these words? Because you're actually sleeping with who you're related to, and that's your parents. And if you can't stand your woman, or you see too much bitch ass shit out of your partner, start to look back at what you observed from your parents, because you're not a victim to that. Like, here's the thing though, with health is the same thing. They'll tell you health runs in the family. Everything runs in the family. If you swim in that pool, you're going to smell the same way they do, right? Cancer runs in the family. And then you sit down and believe that. So it becomes a mind virus, which influences your reality. And here's the thing, though. You're eating the same way they ate. And if they had racism, inflammatory attitudes, or whatever they may have gone through in life that was inflammatory as far as attitudes go, and you eat horrible foods, that's a recipe for disaster. You don't let things go. That's why they say anger, stress, worries, those things make you sick faster than even like junk food does. Why? Because the reason junk food fucks you up is because there are toxins and there are things that make it hard for the body to expel waste, because it's complex chemistry, like complex sugars, complex, let's say bad fats, complex carbs, protein sources from like complex mediums and whatnot. Of course, I mean, it's going to be hard for the body to expel waste, right? And that's the recipe for symptoms of whatever diseases you may want to categorize it as. But when you hold on to emotions because you're angry, the only reason you're angry is because you're holding on to an emotion. Otherwise, you'd be like, let it go. I'm not angry anymore. I let that shit go. Memories. And on a global scale, they make you mad about 911. They make you mad about CV-19. They make you mad about Black History Month. They make you mad about the feminist movement. They make you mad about all kind of shit, and then we hold memorials about it, right? We have a memorial, so you stay in the same circle, the same wheel, right? Here's the thing, and this is actually pretty important. A man wants to be a man, right? And if you don't have your feminine natures intact, okay? The man I would consider the builders, the building blocks. The women I would consider the structure. All right? They're your backbone. That's why when you have a Kundalini awakening, and that whole snake, la serpiente, is all feminine. That's an energy that rises up with consciousness, and you bring it up, okay? And it descends back down. You ground that energy back, okay? We'll get into another video on that. If you don't have that feminine nature in you, and I'll make a separate video because that could be a video in itself of what is even being in tune with the feminine nature. It's almost like building a house on a weak foundation, okay? It's like having proteins. Protein you don't use protein. Protein has to break down to the building blocks of life called amino acids. But you notice the word acid. That's the nitrogen side of chemistry. Carbon would be the alkaline side of chemistry. Okay. Now, you got fruits, high water content. Alkalinity encourages fluidity and movement. When things are stagnant, like dry, agglomerated, it's from too much acids in the body. And when that's happening, it's no different than, and the reason I even mention it from this perspective is because when you look at the world, you could see that if you pour water on the soil on a really hot, dry day, you'll notice that it'll just roll off. It doesn't soak in, right? And that's because the environment is too hot. If your body is acidic and man comes from the soil, he dies, he goes back to the soil. And you'll notice that if your body's too acidic, you think that you're even hydrating, drinking water, it's just going right through you the same way. That's why if I water a plant, and I say I'm going to give this plant a bottle of water, it didn't drink the bottle of water. It came out the bottom of the drain hole. You watered it, but if you put it back outside in the heat, it'll dry up in no time. The same way with men. You're peeing all day when you're drinking water all day. The key is to alkalize the body, right? So the way I look at this, and this is basically all symbolism. If you don't strengthen the fluidity and movement of the body, or you're dehydrated, you're not even absorbing nutrients. The proteins you intake, you're not able to break them down properly. Nothing works unless you have fluidity, unless your body is in a neutral base dominant state. Because if you're introducing proteins into the body that have to convert to acids, which is the acidic side of chemistry, and your body's already acidic to begin with, what you do is you start to imbalance even the skeletal structure of the body. Because now the body has to rob from the skeletal matrix. It could be the skin, it could be from your hair, nails, whatever, just to maintain the pH of the body so that you don't die, So that's the reason why we have to maintain a pH corrected body. And we do this with awareness of what we're eating and what we're basically even introducing ourselves into our body as far as information goes. You know what I'm saying? Everything's ran on chemistry in this realm. Everything is chemistry. I could talk to people for hours and only because we had good chemistry. But if I was being imbalanced in my chemistry with somebody else and we just didn't click, that conversation would last 5 minutes. And if we force ourselves to stay in that conversation, guess what? We might both be drained. But why did we do that? Just to people please and stay there because we want to be nice. Meanwhile, we weren't even feeling each other. That's why I say, man, I'm not feeling that person, right? Same thing with a woman. You go out with a woman, she could be pretty as hell physically, but the moment she opens her mouth, they're like, oh, what the fuck? Now she's ugly as hell. Because she's just, I don't know. It's just like now you look at her differently. And then that's how it is vice versa. A woman may see a man, she likes him, but the moment he opens his mouth and she sees that he's a weak-ass individual by just the things he says, she sees him differently now. There may be people who aren't even that physically attractive, but then you'll find them to look better just based on, how they express themselves and carry themselves and even said to you. Like, because words are powerful, right? The art of persuasion happens through words. And the word became flesh. So if what comes out of somebody's mouth is beautiful, that person just somehow becomes flesh of that beauty, right? But you'll also ride with the people who are in resonance with you. So even if you don't say the most beautiful things, the people at your frequency will probably ride with you. That's why they say I resonate with that. I once resonated with lower vibrational shit, and then I heard higher vibrational shit, and I didn't even understand it until later on when I changed my frequency. I was like, oh shit, I do understand it now, right? Sometimes it's like that with even people. You may not understand people, but because you're just not in a certain frequency, or you guys outgrew each other to some extent, and you force yourself to stay there out of fear of because you're afraid of change, because you're either afraid to be alone, or you're just insecure. Or here's the thing though, your ego is so attached to the other person that you can't stand the sight of seeing that person with another person, only because they may find somebody better. And then all of a sudden now that terrorizes, and suppose you didn't fulfill that person's needs. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. You played a role in that person's movie, but it wasn't to actually fulfill them. It was to show you that how you can fulfill yourself to be able to fulfill somebody else in their role, and only because you're both already fulfilled. But it's all ego, attachments. You know better, but don't do better. It's almost like you know how to, if you're sick, but you know to change your diet, but you don't, it's only because you're a slave to the body. Nothing out here is real. The only thing that's real is your worldview, your perspective. And even if it's distorted, it's real because that's where you're at. I mean, even if I see your worldview completely distorted and it's not true, it's still true. Because if it wasn't true, it wouldn't be in you. Only my worldview would be different than yours. The same way I may see the color green and you may see it the way I see the color red. Who fucking knows, bro? But we don't understand each other because we don't understand ourselves. That's the whole thing. The more we understand ourselves, the more we can actually understand others. You may understand why certain things even piss you off or keep presenting themselves to you in life. It's like you're the director of a movie, but don't become associated with the movie. Just observe it. And the same way the movie has to play out, your life plays out, and it may play out in your favor if you ride it with confidence. That's why they say, how people say to jump in and take risks, the universe supports you. This would have to be done with complete awareness and belief and faith in the fact that you absolutely, with conviction, know that you're observing your life the same way you just realize you're observing a movie. Why is it that when you watch a movie and a sad scene happens, a scary scene happens, you feel an emotion? You feel the emotion, like you may want to feel like crying when you see something sad in a movie. They play on your heartstrings with the music, you know what I'm saying? And then the acting is very, very good on the part of the people who are playing the movie. You know what I'm saying? And even here in real life, people act a certain way. That's why people say, man, why are you acting like that, man? Chill the fuck out. Why are you acting like that? So we're all acting. I'm at a stage in my life where I'm this way now, right? Because we're in the big stage. There's people who are in the big stage, right? Like, let's say you would look at people in politics or celebrities and whatnot. They're in the big stage, but because you agree to put them there. How about you put yourself in the big stage one way or another? And I'm going to tell you right now, one thing I learned is you don't earn power. You take power. And I'm going to tell you why you take power. Because this world is yours. In the words of Scarface, Tony Montana, the world is yours. You take what's yours. You take what's yours, and that's power. And I notice power means many different things to certain people. I'll give you an example. Money is power, but money is an illusion of power, right? A woman may make you feel empowered. When you're with a woman of your choosing, she can give you a lot of power. But why? There's a lot of motivation that a woman can give you, right? But understand the whole psychology behind that whole relationship. Either way you put it, the mentality of a woman is totally different than the mentality of a man. See, the system is designed a certain way where the woman is brainwashed a certain way. Okay? And then you fall into that wave to think that because of societal standards, you have to meet that need. You don't know what a man is. You lose yourself in that whole fucking movie. And that's the same as people pleasing. You just drain your life force and energy. How many times have you found yourself molding to her decisions, you know what I'm saying, and whatnot, even though you know they ain't right? Or continuing on in the same flow just to not ruffle feathers, right? See, a woman is, I look at a woman and it's almost like looking at an overgrown child. And I'm going to tell you why. It's the same way. They are receivers. Children receive. Children receive. They not online. That's why the Jesuits said, give me a child from the age of 1 to 7 and I'll show you who the man is. Why? They don't have an awareness of self the same way an actual true man does. So the child is basically absorbing their reality like a black hole. And they become an individual. Maybe by the age of 7, 8, 9, they start to develop a character. And this is based on the collection of things that they've picked up along the way. Why 7 though? Think about it. The colors of the rainbow, you got certain brains and mentalities. The kids, while they're growing up, they're living in certain chakra systems, right? They're in root, then sacral, then solar, then heart, then throat, then they're in their third eye, and then the crown. They all have the colors of the rainbow. You're developing those colors as they get older. And guess what? At 7, they go back to root, right? And then it just kind of repeats itself. The cycle keeps repeating itself. So at the age you're at now, you're probably living in a certain chakra system now. And that's why you change. Like even your whole body changes every 7 years. Every 7 years, you literally have a new body. Because your cells die and replace themselves and you just become a brand new person. Where does the persona and characters, the thinking come from to fit that character, right? Certain people either gain weight or lose weight to play a specific role, right? Because in their mind, they're playing a role and they read the script and they have to fit that character. And then people's body changes through time, or you can maintain the same because you just never really changed your mentality, right? Women are like children for that reason because women are receivers. The same way they receive the penis and the vagina, women are guided by men, okay? But a woman to be guided by man, she should only be guided by man if she's intact with her masculine energy within herself. And those two can create some real power in this world. They call them power couples. Why? Because now you are like a lit up appliance. The power couples make real shit happen, right? You become so creative and so powerful and so magnetic in your own right because you are both conducive chemistry to each other. You support each other, right? It's not man against the other, or you support you. It's not even gender roles. Like the way that these gender roles are enforced, they're enforced by force. And if you look at nature, nature is the masculine. The sun is the masculine planet. Everything is guided by and structured and ordered by the sun. The sun being the giver of life. If the sun wasn't there, the plants wouldn't grow, right? The seasons change. The warmth happens. That's the building blocks. You got a lot of nitrogen in the air that accumulated in the winter, and every form of condensation like it is right now is strengthening my plants in the garden. So when you look at this, you have light and you have the warmth. That's all masculine. But don't forget, it has to also still be in balance, right? Because on a really hot, dry day, that's just an overkill of heat, right? But notice how that only happens in soil that's not mimicking nature. It's only in barren soil. Like you go into the woods, it don't matter how dry or hot it is. The soil is always going to be cool and alkaline only because in nature, there's a lot of organic matter protecting the soil. But it's not even the soil. It's the organisms in the soil, the microbiome in the soil that we're trying to protect. You know what I'm saying? Because the soil is just soil. You know what I'm saying? But everything else is what grows out of that soil is dependent on the bacteria microbiome in the soil. and it's protected by all the organic matter on top, like dead leaves that fell through the winter, animals passing by, maybe an animal died, that becomes compost, droppings or the soil itself and all that becomes a protective layer of covering for the actual soil underneath, right? You got a lot of like shrubs and leaves, a lot of like pill bugs, a lot of bugs and things in the environment. They start to eat off things and they poop, and that's more compost and protection for the soil, right? When you have a garden, if you can mimic nature, and I'm gonna make a video on my garden, you'll see that everything just thrives. You don't even have to water the plants. It could be a dry, hot day. The moment you dig in the soil, I have so much mulch on top that when you put your hand, it could be dry as hell, drought, but you put your hand in there, it's always gonna be cool and moist in the soil underneath, right? And then that's where you develop a proper, conducive, magical realm of a garden. So a woman, right? That's why it's important to have a good dad in the home. But the moment she doesn't have a dad in the home, and it's only because of how society is structured. And by the way, and this is where it starts. Religion tells you have to be fruitful and multiply, have many, many kids, right? But man has to know himself, right? Health-wise, spiritual-wise, so you don't pass genetic weaknesses down. Stability, they should be very well intact as far as stability goes, right? Where finances are intact and whatnot. Because you'll notice that the people who have the most babies are the poor people. Why? You notice how animals in nature, they just look to reproduce and multiply their species. Look at my cats. I had to neuter and spay all my cats. All right? All my cats I had to spay and neuter. Because if not, they will just keep reproducing. And I'll have like 1,000 cats outside. So I had to spay and neuter like 15 cats. Now I don't have to worry about them reproducing, right? Now, that's because they're animalistic. Okay? Humans, for example, poor people, are more in the animalistic state than actual rich people are. That's why they will just seek to keep reproducing even though they're poor. But then prospectively, sometimes they're very happy, and you got rich people with only 1 or 2 kids, and somehow they are not as happy, right? But everything is all in balance, right? Because what's richest to one may not be richest to another. If you look at money, for example, everything is revolved around the dollar, the money. Everybody's doing everything for money. And money has no value, but it's only valuable because people itself give it value. And the real battery, the real interest is the people. Because without people, money is just paper. You know what I'm saying? Money is just paper. How much does it cost to print a $100 bill to a dollar bill? There's no difference. So looking at it like this, there's no difference. But if I give somebody a $100 bill and a dollar bill, they'll give it 100 times more value only because people believe in that, you know? And people go to work and move things around. The real battery, the real money is people. People are the oil in the machine. People are the actual oil in the machine. Without people, there ain't shit. So in actuality, to whoever the directors are in this life, the big stage, or let's say the people behind closed curtains, you are the money. And how valuable are you? Right? The only reason people have power is because we decide to give them that power. Power is gained by a collective amount of people believing that that person is powerful. Right? So it's influential. And how do you grab that power? You could do it by force, like they used to do in the barbarian days, or it could be done through intellect now. Now it's Revenge of the Nerds. Back in the day, it used to be done by force. Now it's done through the means of the internet, through intellect. And like, back in the day, these smart people used to get picked on in school. Now they're the ones bullying people around online. And the problem is I used to be a smart jock because I used to be an athlete, but I also was one of the ones that had the good grades. Balance is key. Balance is key. Perspective is everything. So woman, this is where I was going to get to with the dad part, by the way. If they don't have their dad, they will find a partner that will emulate who their dad would have been. Or they may have had a lot of influence by just the mom, and it may have been through things they picked up along the way that attracted their partner. But every woman has that testosterone in them, and that's to find the God in them. And that's not a gender, it's an energy. Okay? Adam and Eve were not people. It was just masculine and feminine energy. When they say the masculine was here first, okay, the masculine only appeared to be here first because it came out of nothing or the whole, which is feminine. You get what I'm saying? Now, in totality, there is no genders at all. The totality would just be energy. Just energy. In this realm, we have to, for us to even have perspective, we would have to see it as positive and negative, or feminine and masculine, or electric or magnetic. And that's just to have a perspective or an experience. So the woman being out, coming out of man, that's just basically the awareness of your heart and your emotions and time in general. And that's where the woman just manifested. But this all happened simultaneously. All right? It all happened simultaneously. If we want to look at it as like, you know, God walked the garden and whatnot, it was there as one. It only became a thing, right, when the God fell asleep to have an experience in that realm. That's all it is. The same way I just told you, I lay down and I have thinking patterns, and all of a sudden I appeared in that dream based on the thinking patterns. So what happened now? My body fell asleep, but I was aware I was in the dream. I was literally awake in the dream. But I had to maintain a certain level of awareness so that my physical body doesn't wake up, right? So how do you see, in order for you to have this experience, like God is asleep, but you can still have the awareness. That's why I say, oh, it's blasphemous to say you are God. The body has to stay asleep in order for you to continue in that metaphysical realm of experience, right? But you're experiencing the feminine, which is the metaphysical realm. And you're doing it, and with awareness, you can guide yourself in that feminine state, the feminine environment of the metaphysical realm. In this physical realm, you're in the realm of lights, right? You're in Mother Nature, but it's physical. You see what I'm saying? So it's physical Mother Nature, which means it's masculine world, but it's still feminine. But your awareness is where you start to guide and direct things to basically favor yourself in life. When you're asleep and you're not aware, then it's no different than you're just aware here in the realm. I mean, you're awake here in the realm. Things are happening to you and you don't know why they happen to you. You're aware. I mean, you're experiencing the dream, but you don't really even realize it's a fucking dream until you wake up in the morning. Right? So you don't even realize it's a fucking dream. Here, you may just live life and you don't realize how much power you had until you die, because you just wake up in the fucking death realm. And that's why they go to your wake when you die. You know what I'm saying? And people are mourning your death. When you wake up in the morning, good morning. It's like, what the fuck? Everything's like, they're showing you shit in real time through words. It's incredible, right? Are you aware of the feminine in your life, which would be the women you attract, Mother Nature, the way nature operates? Everything is showing itself symbolically to you in tools. You just don't fucking realize it. You want to separate it. There's some people who believe in fucking feminism to the point that they want to argue about feminism and masculinity and whatnot. But they say, oh no, I don't believe in racism. And I already made a video on how those two things even equate. Feminine Feminism is the fight for equality for women to be equal to the men. And what is racism? It's for the black man to be equal to the white man. Same shit. Oh, you know, we fight for reparations and we were done this by the white man. They stole all of our history and the white man now is white supremacy. It's all victim mentality. Same shit. The black man is the manifestation of feminine energy. That's why they are in that position. Subconsciously, they are placed in that position to play that role out. You notice how if a black man calls a white guy cracker or the yellow belly or the fucking the pink ape or what, it's okay. But if you got a white guy calling the black person the N-word, oh, forget it. That's a fucking problem, man. You know what I'm saying? It's just like women can get away with certain things that men cannot. Right? Same shit. This could go down to, police brutality. I mean, look, it goes, I can make a separate video on it. It all correlates the exact same way. I don't care if it's a black man. A black man is the manifestation of feminine energy. He is a child of the sun. He could be in the sun a lot longer than a white man can. A white man being out in nature for too long, that's too much friction. He would have to marry the night instead, the moon. His skin would even look a certain way under the blue light of the moon. The black people would look would have like a golden glow under the sun, a different kind of glow than a white person would, right? And black people they have higher risks of vitamin D deficiency only because they're not in sunlight long enough, right? And white people, I mean, they suffer from high blood pressure. They got all this crazy shit, and I know black people do too, but, it's all different chemistries. A white person can't be in the sun too long. The sun is masculine and there's friction there. It's almost like two men trying to have sex. It's unnatural, right? And it's not to say they can't have sex. They could, but they would have to actually use artificial means to do it. They would have to use artificial lubricants. Where if a man slept with a woman, it naturally is harmonious chemistry where they don't need any kind of synthetic or outside sources to help them have sex. They could just have sex naturally. Two men, it has to be artificially modified in order for them to be able to experience that. And that's up to them. That's their problem. Women, same thing. The fact that they both have sex is unnatural, right? There's friction there too. So when it comes down to everything in life, everything, like I said, it's chemistry. What is conducive to chemistry? The matrix is perfect. Nature matrix is perfect. But people equate the matrix, saying that the matrix, they don't believe in the matrix because the matrix now, man can be a woman and, this and that. And I'm like, nah, that's not. That's the distortion. That's the GMO version of it. And that's not conducive. That's not a matrix. You have a skeletal matrix in your body. And it has to be exactly the way it's designed to be, because if not, it wouldn't exist. It will fall apart. Now, when you put things in your body that don't belong there, the body has to imbalance that chemistry, rob something from there to balance out the imbalance that you were putting in your body in the form of too much acid ash foods. So it has to alkalize the body with some type of calcium carbonate. So you now you weaken the bones. So you see how the matrix is the same thing. In actuality, you weaken the matrix the more you don't participate or go against the grain of what society tells you is the matrix. You know what I'm saying? Like religion, education, government. And I'm not saying go fucking run amok, but it technically is coming out the matrix. It technically is. But it's only making the system imbalanced. No different than if you eat bad food, you make yourself sick and you may potentially just die. Is that necessarily what you want to do? You know what I'm saying? Self-destruct. Your key is to learn love here, or not learn it, be it. Like it's what you are. So you're living this experience is to eat healthy because you love yourself. And nature You only participate, or you're in the world but not of it, only because you love yourself. That's the only reason you would participate in the world of life, whatever it may be. And it's not to demonize one thing or the other. It's integration, understanding that one imbalance exists because you exist. The only reason there are imbalances is because you may be balanced. And the only reason there's balance is because you're imbalanced. Who gives a fuck? It's all balance. It's how you have an experience. But also the whole matrix of distortion exists because of your polarization and because you both are fighting each other. Like, let's say blacks versus white. Blacks versus white. You see the word verse? It's like a frequency match. And the whole thing is, you both, even though you're fighting against each other, you're trying to outdo the other, one knock the other out. I mean, either way you put it, the fact that you are fighting, you're supporting each other, right? Because it's one against the other. When you support people, don't you lean against something to support yourself? Like you lean against the wall, lean on me, I'll support you. You may put your body against mine to hold your structure up. Either way you put it, it's all perspective. You see what I'm saying? So even in your fights, in your debates, you're strengthening the system. A necessary evil, right? For your ego to exist, for you to have a good time. Is it love or is it absence of love? You're just doing it for egotistical purposes, but it's still love at the end of the day. Doesn't matter. Love is just the glue that's holding everything together. It's basically a happening that's happening. That's it. Love is the life you're experiencing. Death is basically a necessary in order for you to experience life. Without there being a death, you are not alive. It wouldn't exist. It wouldn't exist. God had to die for you to experience your living self here. Why did Jesus die for the sins of the world? Jesus was categorized as God. Jesus is the God of humanity. So the reason you exist is because God existed. You see what I'm saying? So he died for you to live, but the whole everlasting life part only comes down to when you're a frequency match to just being human. And I made a video on the whole everlasting life thing, the whole reincarnation thing. You know what I'm saying? And it's all a mindset. But the same way, if you can't change your mind, you won't change your life. You get what I'm saying? How do you, they say love, if it's meant to be, you let it go. And if it's meant to be, it'll come back. Love, you let go. If it's meant to be, it'll come back, right? This is love. Love is just life. But you let it go, right? When you die, you're not bringing your body with you. You don't bring any of this shit with you. Like a partner, you deaded a relationship. That's a death, right? But if you don't change, you'll attract the same person in another body. Because that person is you. If you don't marry the night, like Lady Gaga, she wants to marry the night, like marry the night, then you will be stuck in your day. And here's the thing though, a lot of these people in the patriarchy, they're really gay. They're really gay. They have no connection to the feminine. It's all about the masculine. The feminine is just the servant, the submissive force. And listen, there's a lot of truth and validity to that, but not from the perspective that they're coming from. No, no, no. You see, when you're a man, you don't have to force a woman to bend to your will. It'll just happen naturally. It happens as naturally as everything just harmoniously follows the masculine sun and has order over the chaotic natures of the feminine planet, Earth. That's all it is. You're driving down the road, your headlights are on. That light is you for that person. But it has to be that for you first, because you're the driver. They're your co-pilot. That's all I got for this video. Like, share, subscribe, and we will talk soon.